Damsels, I'm Crystal.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is Damsels After Dark, your favorite book review spot.
Today we'll be reviewing The Stolen Heir by Holly Black.
The first half of our episode will be spoiler free, but then the second half we're going to get into a little bit more details, but we'll give you a warning before then.
If you would like to follow along with us, our reading and review schedule will be linked in the description below.
Without further ado,
let's jump into it.
So Kristen is wearing the mother of crown jewels today.
I had to because I've been watching Bridgerton and they are pulling out all the stops with the jewelry and I'm just loving it. I'm like, I have to do that. I have to do the crown jewel.
I love it. She came out. She's like, "Is this too sparkly?" And it was kind of in the shadow, and I was like, "No, it looks fine." And then she got in front of the lights, and I'm like, "Wow, there's some shine going on over
there.
Is
it still too much?" She's like, "No, I love it." As she's laughing, and I'm like, "I don't know."
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. I'm a little jealous. I should have.
It makes me feel like, oh, there it goes.
Oh.
This has been falling off like the whole time before we started. And like I think I switched it to like what, the fourth backing?
Yes.
Like the third or fourth backing.
Yeah, we lost one on the carpet somewhere.
Yeah, I'm surprised. So that like both backings are different right now.
It would drive me crazy.
It is. It's totally driving. So it'll probably fall off one or two more times.
Good. That'll be good.
We'll have bloopers. How many times has Kristen's earring fallen off?
Yeah, take a shot every time her earring falls off of her ear.
Maybe you'll notice and I won't. And then like one earring will be
It'll be in your hair while you're talking. They're gorgeous though. I wanted to watch Bridgerton, but it's the same with books. Like you can't do a half of a season.
No, it is ridiculous. And I told myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to watch now. And then here I am. I think there's only 4 episodes right now. And I think I'm on episode 2 or 3.
Oh, okay.
Because I stop and then I'll go back into it. But it's like I'm trying to pace myself watching it. Because we said the next one comes out in
next
June.
month, I think. Yeah.
So it's like I'm trying to pace myself. So I'm watching in between. I'm watching true crime and all this stuff. But like,
they're going to leave you on
a big, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've heard from like the little bit of spoilers that I've gotten into, and that's the only reason why I started watching it, because I heard a couple big spoilers, and I'm like, I kind of want to watch it just for that.
You heard some big spoilers.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, and so it was like on Facebook too. Like Netflix is just posting these things on my because I follow Netflix, and they're just posting these things. And I'm like, no, now I have to watch it.
That's why they did it.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just spoil a little bit for you.
Oh, they spoiled a good chunk of the sexual tension.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's the best part. Did they not learn anything from season 2?
I don't know.
Because that's really what hooked me in the show. The first season was great. Season 2, I was like, I don't fucking care about these 2 people. Why am I watching this? And then out of nowhere, I'm like, this is the best shit I've ever watched in my life.
I don't know what they did, but like why they did it, but they chose to do a couple big spoilers. And so
shame on them.
I was like, I might as well watch it now.
Yeah.
That's how it got me.
Wow. You're representing well today.
Yes, thank you.
I like it. I wish I would have gotten the memo. I would have.
It was a last minute decision.
Okay.
It was like, what should I put on? And I'm like, the crown jewels.
Of course. What else would you wear? That's great. No, I love it. I think they're beautiful. I like them.
Thank you. I think they're all messed up now. Because I keep touching them. I can't keep my hands off them. Okay.
They're gorgeous. I love them. Well, we've missed you guys. Tons.
Yeah, this is our first full episode since our little break. Unexpected break.
Yes. I'm glad again that it's Holly. I think we left on Holly.
I don't remember.
Was the last one that we did was The Dark Side of the Forest?
I think so. I want to believe it is.
I think it might be. So we left on Holly. We're coming back to Miss Black. So the book we're reviewing today is the first part in a duology, which, does duology have its own name? Or is it, I just keep calling it the Stolen Heir books.
I think it does, but I can't remember exactly. The Stolen Heir duology. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, well, so it comes right after the events of the last book in the Cruel Prince series, or the Folk of the Air series, since that one does have a series name.
Yeah, that one does. I believe this one does too, but it just says a novel of Elfhelm.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so there will be spoilers for the last book of the Folk of the Air series, which is The Queen of Nothing, because this follows the events of that. They're intertwining things within that if we're going to talk about it, then we're going to spoil a lot of events.
Yeah,
so just forewarning.
Yeah, hopefully you read it the Cruel Prince series, but if you didn't, be prepared.
And if you didn't, and you don't want to, but you want a quick way to digest it, we have a couple series up deep diving into the whole series, so you can look at that if you want, or you could read and come back and check out this episode.
So this is supposed to be set 8 years after the Queen of Nothing. So now this is more focused on the story of Ren and Oak. Oak is the brother of the Queen of Elfham, and what is he in relation to Carden? He's
Carden's like
nephew,
something, or is it cousin?
That. I can't remember because I think Locke is his brother, right?
Yeah, but isn't Dane his dad or whatever his name is? Dane, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like he's like more than one thing to Carden.
Yes.
So he's like Carden's so he's Locke's brother. Because I think it's just that they're both Dane's son, and Dane is Carden's brother. So I think it's just his nephew.
Yeah.
And but he's married to I think something else because I know Dane is Locke's. I don't remember. So he's something with Locke because he's Locke's brother, right?
I thought he's Locke's dad because he had Locke first, and then he had Locke with another woman. Yes. And then he had Oak with the woman he tried to kill. And so they were half brothers.
Yeah, so Oak is half brothers to
Locke.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I want to say so Oak isn't really related to the Queen other than adopted. He's adopted because even the Queen isn't even any of the related to any of the people in Elfham because she was taken at a young age. So the Queen, Jude, is actually an adopted human sister to Oak.
Yeah.
And she's a twin to Taryn, who was married to Oak's half brother. So yeah, so it's very confusing and very crazy where the familial lines go. But just know that they treat him as a brother. He is their brother, and Ren is a princess or actually the queen from the Court of Teeth, and she ends up being misplaced, so to speak, from the kingdoms. But she actually just ran away.
Like Kristen said, she just sort of went off into the human world, and she spent her days just living in the woods as like a homeless person in the woods. But she stayed around the kind of like the outsides of Elfham, so that, or what she was doing was helping humans who were getting into bad bargains with the Fae, and so she would go and like save them from whatever deal that they made, which I think is just hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. She ends up finding out that I think it's a storm hag called Bogdaga, whatever. I can't say it.
Bogdana,
whatever. I don't know how to say it. She ends up trying to like search for Ren, and so does Carden. Oh my god, so does Oak. They're both trying to like find Ren, and when they do, it's almost like a race between them two, who's pretty much going to get Ren on their side in a small manner. You don't really know exactly what's going on with that, but Oak ends up wanting to have Ren help him assist getting his dad back from Ren's mom, because she's like trying to like start shit in the Court of Teeth Kingdom. So the best thing to do is to get Ren, because Ren can control her mom. And so they look for her. Oak's looking for Ren. They find Ren, and they're trying to. They is the little group that Oak has with him. I think he has like his knight that is assigned to him from Jude. And so, and like a couple other people tag along eventually.
They have a prisoner.
Yeah.
Tiernan, and I think is Hyacinth.
Tiernan
Hyacinth is the prisoner, and Tiernan is his knight.
Yeah.
And so the three of them, or four of them, are heading up north
because they have Jack the Kelpie.
Yeah, Jack the Kelpie eventually.
He's fucking hilarious.
Tags along.
Yeah.
But so that's essentially what this book is.
It's an adventure book.
It's an adventure book, and it's from Ren's point of view, and you get to learn a lot about the intricacies that happened between Oak and Ren during events of the last book in the Folk of the Air when they were kids. Also, the little reconnections that they had as they were growing up that, of course, we didn't see. And then we have this final reconnection when they finally get together to do an actual event or quest.
Yeah, the quest actually remind me a lot of like the Hobbit story, especially when they get into the troll territory.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty reminiscent of the Hobbit in a little way.
Yeah.
It was. I loved that part. I think the most out of all the adventure little things that they do. There's a bunch of little parts in the book that I really like, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was such a good book overall. I really enjoyed it. I mean, coming from the darkest part, which was one of her, I think, the beginning parts of the Elfham series, and then jumping into this, it was kind of like we went Cruel Prince, darkest part of the forest, and then
Mm-hmm.
the duology.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of weird because we kind of did it all in out of order, but it was nice to go back into this because the Elfham stories, Elfham, they're just really great, and you got to see all that magical, whimsical story, fantasy stuff all over again. It was especially with Jack the Kelpie. He was ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous.
One thing that I did like about this was that it was from Ren's point of view because I wasn't expecting that, but I liked to hear her story. I liked Ren. Ren has such a traumatic and sad childhood, and I think I even have a quote here that sort of sums it up. She says that as a child, Ren read lots of fairy tales. That's why when the monsters came, she knew it was because she had been wicked. And that just sort of is so sad. And it sets the tone for her kind of, that's how she grew up because she was a kid living in the human world as like a normal 6-year-old, and then out of nowhere these monsters came and stole her in the night and took her off to the fairyland, and they were horrible to her growing up. And so she has this want to kind of be around what she now dubs as her unfamily, which is the family that she was with before when she was a changeling, before they came and grabbed her back. And so that's sort of her outlook through the whole book, is the traumatizing snatching that happened because it was very traumatic. Like how they came in and grabbed her was very traumatic, and then her then having to live in this super abusive household queen unit. It was horrible. It was so bad. So I felt so bad for her, but it was nice to see a different point of view.
Yeah, she had a really rough childhood. What I really liked about this too is like when you are talking about Ren's side of things, you kind of go back into the past. They go back and forth in the past with Oak and Ren and how they got to meet and their little history together, and how you got to find out that they actually had bonding moments in the book during the Cruel Prince series, and the was it Battle of the Serpent. During all that time, actually Oak and Ren had bonded several times throughout their childhood, and you don't really know that until this series.
Yes.
So it was really good to go back to that part and back to those parts of the book and find out, what made them have some kind of connection in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. That peek behind the curtain, I love so much. It makes these books so much more dynamic when you have the events that are going on and you as a reader are part of those events that are going on, and then to have another angle of things that you didn't know that were going on. Because Oak, he was a side character, but he was such a minor side character. Like Vivian was a side character, and she had a lot kind of going on. We were well acquainted with her. Oak was just like some boy. He was just like some annoying little 5-year-old boy, or however old he was. A little kid just running around. So there was no extra layer that was going on there. So it's nice to see this. Really makes the world feel a lot bigger. And so I like that a lot too.
Yeah, it was cute. It was cute. And you got to see, since it's through Ren's eyes, Ren's perspective, you got to see how she felt during those moments of their encounter.
Yes.
So it was really cool. It wasn't through Oak's perspective, but you got to see how she viewed Oak, and how even though she was going through some really crappy moments, she saw him as sad.
Yes.
And it was very very cute in a way, because she's just like, I want to kill him and tear him apart, but look at this sad rich prince boy,
Yes, yeah.
It was cute. I liked it.
I liked it a lot too. So what's your overall rating?
I gave it close to a 4. I was like a 3.5, but I ended up giving it a 4 because obviously half points don't, you can't really half points. But so I stuck with a 4 only because I didn't feel like a 3 was adequate. So I gave it a 4 because to me, it had all the elements there. It wasn't up to the Cruel Prince, obviously, because it had more of an adventure and more of the storytelling aspect of it that I do like. I just felt like there was really nothing lacking. I just didn't feel like it was a 5.
I agree.
But I had everything there that I do like, and as a young adult book, because that's what this one is considered, it is really great. And I don't really necessarily like a whole bunch of young adult books, but this has that fantasy element that just and that tension between the two characters, which I'll talk about my favorite parts later, is still there even though it's young adult, and it's great. It's great. It's hilarious to me. Ren is hilarious, and so is Oak.
Yes.
So
I couldn't commit to a full 4, but I also didn't think that it deserved a 3. So I'm over here at like 3.75 because even though we can't give half points, but I'm going to say solid on this because it wasn't a 4. I will admit that there are moments in this book that are a little bit boring. That I just didn't connect with, and I was sort of like, okay, that's great, this is cool and all, but it was good enough that I genuinely cared. One thing that I really liked is that she made a dynamic character within Ren. She wasn't just a rework of Jude, which is what I was nervous about because that's sort of how Hazel felt in the darkest part of the forest. That was the first draft of Jude, and then we got a real Jude. So I was worried about how Ren was going to come off, but she really nailed Ren as her own character with her own backstory, and I cared a lot about it, and I was really sad for Ren at certain points. And then I do love the dynamic between the two of them. Like, you've got this golden sunshine boy, and then you've got this like depressed monster girl, and I love their dynamic together.
They're so cute.
They're adorable. They're adorable. One thing I will say though, and the hardest part for me in this book was that I couldn't get down with the connection. Like, I don't see them connecting, and I don't think that it's an issue with Holly's issue. It's my issue because Oak to me is always just like this little boy. he's my like queen's brother, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's really cute that you're saying all this nice stuff, and yeah, you're saying all the right things, but it's just not hitting for me because I'm like, you're way too young. Like, that's the feeling I was getting the entire time, so I couldn't get into that mode. It was just like, oh, look at how cute they are.
See, and I think at this point in their lives, I think they're like 18, 19, and Jude is in her late 20s now, which is great. So,
yes.
So I don't want to talk about that the Jude part yet because I feel like that is a spoiler in itself that Miss Holly Black kind of hinted at in I think one of the books.
The last one.
So I'll talk about that in the next episode. But I'm happy that Jude is in her late 20s right now.
Me too.
So that means Oak is in his like late teens, early 20s.
I think he's 17 and she's 18.
Okay, so that makes sense. But I agree. The only thing is that I like, since it's being told in Ren's perspective and not Oak's, it's making me feel like if I were Ren, I'm not looking at the age, and I'm just like, this boy right here. So like, even though I don't feel for Oak as a love interest from my perspective, as Ren's perspective, I can see why she's sitting back like, what is he trying to do right now? Yes. Look at this boy trying to act like a grown ass man, trying to hit on me, trying to like make something of himself and trying to sweet talk me. But she ends up like pushing him away, pushing him distance from her as many times as she possibly can, because she's just trying to catch feeling.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, because he really is saying and doing all the right things too. And it's just, it is perfect, now that you mention it and I'm thinking about it, it's perfect to experience this through Ren's point of view, because she is sort of embodying that same feeling of like, you're saying like, who is this? But then he's just charming enough that he is totally getting under her skin, and I'm not going to deny that he didn't do certain things that were like getting under my skin, but then it would always snap me out of it. Like, I think it's the second book where I get more disillusioned out of it. In the first book, because like you're saying, that Ren's point of view is that way, where she's like, no, you're some little child, like, go away. So yes, I connected with it then, but when we get into the second book, it's a little bit more like, man, I love everything that you're doing. I really, really do, but I'm not the one.
It's funny. I love it though.
Yeah, so a solid like 3, 4. No, I think we would say 4. I think it's fair to give it a 4.
Yeah.
I also put in, because I thought it would be interesting to know, Goodreads rating was also a 3.99 out of 103,000 reviews.
So we were right along with them.
So we're right along with them. And I wanted to also point out that the most common criticism was that it was boring, which I'm going to agree that it was boring. I think if you're not really invested in Elfhame or Oak's story or getting to the end of this, then maybe it probably is a little bit boring.
It is. I agree. And you know what? If you're not a fan of The Hobbit,
Yeah.
You're not going to be a fan of this.
Because it's just a slow burn adventure.
It has those Hobbit essence to it that I couldn't, like, let's go on an adventure. And they're just like hopping from one issue. And I kept calling them snafus. That's the only thing I could think of. Every time they go on an adventure, they go to a new town, there's like a new snafu.
Yeah,
every time. And it's
accurate.
So Hobbit-esque that I just couldn't get over it.
It feels young adult.
Yes.
Like, this book feels way more young adult than The Cruel Prince did. Mm-hmm. So I could see if you were coming to it from The Cruel Prince, that it would come off a little bit boring and a little bit more childish. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid criticism that it is a little bit boring. Another one of the criticisms was that people were upset that it was from Ren's point of view, which I understand why it's from Ren's point of view, and I think we'll talk more about that when we finish the series. I like that it was Ren's point of view. I do too.
I like that it was Ren's point of view gave me, well, there's a lot of history and stuff that she went through that you kind of have to know about.
We know Oak's story.
Yeah.
I don't know who Ren is. And if you're going to write a duology about these two love interests, I should know Ren's point of view.
And you need to know her personality and her insight to a lot of stuff too. You won't be able to grasp the second part of the series if you don't have Ren's point of view.
And what would the whole first book be about? What, like, backstory for Oak? Like, there's,
it would actually be more boring.
It would be more boring because I already know Oak's backstory in a sense. Hers is way more interesting. Mm-hmm. And then one of the other most common things that I saw is that there wasn't enough Jude and Carden in there. And I'm just going to say, if you're coming into this book for Jude and Carden, that's an unfair criticism. This isn't a Jude and Carden book.
No, it says it right on it. The Stolen Heir. This is about Oak. It says it in the little description. If you are reading it for Jude and Carden.
And okay, like, if you want to read it for Jude and Carden, for the little breadcrumbs that they give you, that's all fine. That's all well and good. But don't criticize the book because there wasn't enough in it, or downgrade it for the ratings because there wasn't we read Jude and Carden.
Go reread the Cruel Prince if you're missing them, which is completely fine. We agree. I miss them too. You want to reread, just go back and reread.
But don't criticize the new book for it. So I just thought I'd throw those in there because those are very interesting. But I think that sort of sums up our, like, non-spoiler, because now I want to get into the nitty-gritties. Yeah. So if you haven't read it, this is our spoilers, and we're going to cover our best parts, worst parts, some quotes that we like, and I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Do you want to start with your best parts?
Yes, so my best part is when Oak, I got several of them, Oak pretends he can't fight. Mm-hmm. He acts like he can't do shit, he doesn't know how to fight, people fight his battles for him, but then there was this, so I'm going out of order. So there's a scene where he had to fight. Because his entourage with him is just pretty much being held captive. Yes. And so he fights, and he is a badass. He's whooping ass. Even Ren is like, what the fuck? You know, we talked about, Oak was not doing it for me in that whole, like, love interest thing, but that, from Ren's point of view, made me feel like, ooh, Oak is a badass. Mm-hmm. That made me like,
which I was excited.
Turn that dial into a little bit like, oh, he's got some spice.
Ooh, he's got some badassery to him.
And that was towards the end of the book for that one.
Yes, and I was going to say, which is nice because that was a secret a lot of the book, the way through.
I didn't even know.
He really took a card out of Carden's deck on how to mold his personality so that he is not taken seriously. And then he uses the element of surprise just to play this sort of, like, ditzy, I'm just the prince, I'm the heir to Elfheim, like, I drink and I have fun and I party and I sleep around.
He definitely used Carden's.
I love it. I loved it so much, and his banter is top notch. I love his banter in this book and in the next book. He's like right up there with Carden.
Yeah, it's great. So that whole scene was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about, it is boring in the first half of that book, but once it gets to the end, it is like, once they're all their little adventures that they're going on is crazy. Because in my opinion, the first half is Oak trying to convince Ren. Mm-hmm. And Ren telling her backstory. And so that, when you get to these parts, and mostly the second half of the book is where all my favorite parts are. And then there's a thing that Oak likes to do. He likes to jump from woman to woman to woman to woman. And every woman he is with, he says, this is the thing.
This is what snagged Kristen.
Yeah, it's like, Dude, you like to suffer. He says, I like to suffer the love of cruel women.
Mm-hmm.
He loves women that just like, not treat him like shit, but give him that sassy, spicy attitude. And it's like, he loves it and he eats it up. And so Ren is like the epitome of all the cruel women he has come to deal with.
Well, it's almost like he fell in love with Ren as the monster first and has
then
been trying to replicate
yes.
that in other women.
Yes, and I love that because
Yes.
he's already meant to have been with her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because if you remember the encounters that they had that Ren described, he was always intrigued by her while everybody was feared by her.
Yes.
And like, just like disgusted by her. It's nice to see that he was, like you said, he was just chasing that love of Ren and everyone.
So romantic.
Which kind of goes back into something that there's one part in this whole book that I do hate, so I kind of want to put a notch in this little thing where he says he loves cruel women, so because it also ties in with something I hate. I like the cleverness of Oak with this bridal part, and I'm gonna say, so they're going around with this bridle because they plan on using it they had it on somebody, and now they have it, and they're going someplace with it. I don't remember exactly what they plan on doing. I don't think there was even a plan at the moment. It was kind of like quiet. Ren was always trying to figure out why he had the bridle, like what they were planned to do with it, but he kept it hidden, and so she took it and tried to run with it. And it was so funny to me because I think he woke up at one point before she left, and she just said she was going to go out to do go for a walk or something. Yeah. But this sly motherfucker took it out of her bag while he was trying to be seductive with her, and she went all the way out to the fucking in town, wants to take a bus, and the bridle was gone.
Yep.
She gets back and Oak is just being his charming self, I can also be clever and shit like that. He says, I don't remember exactly what he says, but it was just this motherfucker. It's getting closer to the end when all this stuff is happening, and it was just Oak. Yeah. It's you're super cute.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's you're super cute.
He's getting it in there.
So there's a part where they kind of stop and they're in a cave or something, and I think she gets stuck by Bogdaga, and she tells her the story about, no, they go to some place and they tell them the story. They meet up with some witch or something. I think it's Mother Marrow, and tells her the story about, it's actually the Thistle Witch that tells her the story about Mab and Millet. And this is actually a very interesting story because it has a lot to do with Bogdaga and Ren. So I don't remember the whole story, but it's a very interesting story. I really like that. It actually put a fairy tale background into it and gave Ren a history. And the other part that I really liked is when Oaks was super surprised that Ren escaped from prison.
Oh yes,
she was put in prison. She was put in prison, and she was just and I think Oak was actually wandering around. But anyways, she escapes. We're trying to help her escape. But she ends up escaping herself and then ends up getting the bridle on the queen. And Oak ends up finding her, and he's what does he say? He's I could have, he's I would have loved for you to tell me because I could have just helped by applauding you.
Oh, yeah.
And holding your handbag. Yeah. He's pretty much he knew he was useless, but the most he could have done for her is go, brava, brava.
Held her first while she was kicking ass.
Yeah. And he just is so excited and intrigued and probably a little bit of scared sexiness of her. And it's great. I love, those are my favorite parts.
That was one of my favorite parts too. I have that down as one of my favorite quotes when he says that. Yeah, I love that. So let's see, some of my favorite parts. I loved, there's a time when they're going in through the castle and he starts picking a fight with some orcs. I almost said oaks. So he, essentially what he does is he's punching them. Or no, they're punching him. Yeah. And he's instigating it, telling them to keep his out. Oh, you got?
Yeah. I do remember
that. And Ren is watching this, what the fuck?
Because she doesn't know he can fight yet either.
Yes. Yes. And nobody knows, right? Because everybody just thinks he's some doof. And so he keeps telling him to hit him again, and then Ren comes back up. And then he says to her when he sees her, oh, I lost you. Let's come dance with me. Let's go practice our dance. And I'm that type of stuff. I was okay.
There's actually a little bit of history on why he antagonizes people to beat the shit out of him. Yes. He actually, it's something that triggers him, and so he enjoys it to get a good feel out of out of it and something for him to like deal with in his inner.
Yeah, and this had happened to this had happened after. So they're at this same party, and she's essentially wanting to call his bluff because he's been flirting with her, and she's like, "You don't really like me. Like, you're just fucking with me. So I'm gonna call your bluff." And she gives him like a little kiss, like pulls him in for a little kiss, and she goes away, and then he grabs her and pulls her into a real kiss, and it's like moments like those where I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, and then he does the orc thing after, and then he sees her, and he's like, "Oh, let's go dance." It's just like whiplash. Because it's after she comes back up from the chambers.
Yeah, that's a good part.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
At that moment, I was not seeing him as such a little boy anymore. I was like,
I agree. Those parts were getting me too.
He's got moves.
Yeah, he
He's got some moves. I don't want to admit it, but he's got some.
Yeah.
And then some other things that I like because I like a badass female. When she spits in Lady Nora's face.
Oh,
the blood.
Yeah.
So Lady Nora, if you remember, has her. Like, it's like forcing her to talk, and then if she talks, she can't lie, so she's trying to get her to say things, so Ren ends up biting her tongue. I think she bites it off, and her mouth is like flooding with blood, and Lady Nora's like asking her a bunch of other questions. She straight spits in Lady Nora, all that blood in her face, and I think that's why she gets sent down to the chambers, when she ends up breaking out. And then also at the very end, when she unmakes Lady Nora, like just by the thought of the fact that she was just mad at everybody. All of the secrets came out. She's looking at Lady Nora and she's like, "I want you gone." And then she just like rips into a million pieces.
That was pretty crazy.
It was epic.
I forgot all about that part.
Fucking love that.
It was a good part, yeah.
Yeah, I'm obsessed. As far as not so good parts, I didn't have any not so good parts, but I know that you do.
I do. And it ties into that thing where Oak was saying that he likes to suffer the fate of the love of cruel women. Well, he had an ex-girlfriend that was a mermaid, and who kept trying to drag him into the water, which gave me Carden and what's her name? Namir. I can never say her name, and I want to.
We said Nicasia, but it's actually Nicasia.
Nicasia.
Because I was listening to an audiobooks like, who's Nicasia? Because they keep talking about her, and I'm like, oh, that's Nicasia.
Yeah.
We said it.
Anyways, Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki.
It gave me Carden and Nikki vibes.
Yes, it did.
So, anyways, Oak has an ex-girlfriend that's a mermaid, and he ends up seeing her on a boat ride. And so Ren is there with him.
Yeah.
And at this time, Ren is thinking that they have some kind of like connection, in a small, slight way. But he ends up like kissing her to get information. And it's like so gross.
Yeah.
It like gave me that gross. I'm like the whole time I'm like
Yeah.
And so like Ren's there and she's upset. And of course you're reading this from Ren's perspective,
Yeah.
so we're upset.
Yeah, it was not the best. Though I will say it didn't end up on my most hated scene list because for me they were still. I think this is like the first. This is pretty early on in the book that this happens in the beginning. It's like we're. They've had a relationship blooming since they were kids, but we're learning about it throughout. So in my head, I hadn't quite got there with her yet. So when he did it, I felt a lot kind of like Ren had, where it was just kind of like, ew.
It was just so gross.
It was gross, but I wasn't like so turned. Like if it had happened later in the book, when there had been an established like, oh, hi Oak, like I'm into him. But at this point, I was just like, oh, okay, now you're kissing girls, like whatever. Like that's how it felt. I was just kind of like, whatever, guy. So it was perfectly done, and that it was done at the beginning before we had got too deep into the end. But I could see why it was just like
she was like dragging him down.
I was about to say, but I liked it because she tried to kill him.
She did, and I was like, but he knew too. He's like, this is gonna happen, and I'm like, why are you?
He needed the information.
Oh, so
and
disgusting.
she wanted a sweet kiss, so he's like, all right.
They both wanted.
But I liked that portrayal of him in the beginning. I guess that's why I don't hate it, because it fit with this sort of playboy persona that he was giving. So I liked that, because then when that playboy persona is broken and that actually, I mean, he is kind of a helpless romantic because he's just falling for all these monster girls, but when he goes from being a playboy to a fascination with Ren, I think that makes it that much more like deep,
Yeah.
I guess. Like, I'm that much more in love with the fact that he's putting off his playboy ways and he's coming to Ren, you know what I mean? So that sort of fed into it, even though I don't think that that's his true nature and his true personality. I just think he's a hopeless romantic, chasing for his love of Ren, who's been denying him all his life.
I know, I understand it, and I think it's a good, without it, it wouldn't make that playboy, that honey tongue, that more clear into the book. It was needed. So that being said, we do have a few favorite quotes, but we're just gonna go ahead and post them at the end of the episode so you can read them for your viewing pleasure.
Yeah, so anyways, I think overall, good book.
Yeah.
Excited to read the next one, which is of course The Prisoner's Throne.
Yeah. That's a good one. I liked it.
I think Kristen's already given the thumbs up for that
I liked it.
It's been a good duology.
Yeah.
It's nice. But anyways, so that's it for this episode. Overall, 4.
Yeah.
I'd say. And I think that was the standard across the board anyways for everybody. So, but also we forgot to do our spice, but there is no spice because it's a young adult. This is a Holly Black young adult. She does 0.
No spice.
But so yeah, I enjoyed it. But
great.
Yeah, that's it for this episode. We will see you next week for The Prisoner's Throne. No. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I did it. We'll see you next week for The Prisoner's Throne.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and so you can follow along with us and see what we're doing at all times.
Great. We'll see you next week.
Bye.